Welcome back. Bovine respiratory disease continues to be one of the biggest issues we face, costing the industry more than $1 billion annually. But a group of researchers is hoping to battle BRD with genomics. Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Brad Bulla takes us to Idaho for an update on the BRD cap and how the efforts of researchers and industry working together could provide new weapons in the battle against BRD.
At Simplot Land and Livestock's feeding operation in Grandview, Idaho, cattle receive top quality health care and attention as they're finished. Even so, Simplot's Dr. Randall Raymond says the crew here has to be on guard every day to prevent BRD.
Bovine respiratory disease is one of the biggest challenges we deal with, and depending on the class of cattle we're talking about, it can be one of the most significant things that we see in the feed yard in terms of health and performance outcomes. So there are a lot of costs associated with respiratory disease in the feed yard. The first is the cost of the actual medication and treatment. The second is labor, the time it takes to remove cattle from the pen, get them to a hospital facility, treat them, and help them recover, and then get them back to their home pen. So reducing labor costs and medical item cost is a big deal. The real hidden costs are in the production loss that we see, and they're sometimes hard to measure.
The economic cost of BRD in the cattle industry is enormous. We've conservatively estimated that, based on the incidence rates that's reported across the industry, that the losses exceed $1 billion just to the feedlot industry alone. And those losses stretch back. There's also losses in the stocker industry as well as the cow-calf industry.
With the economic impact of BRD touching all producers in the beef supply chain, researchers working together in the USDA-funded BRD CAP project have focused on the use of genomics to tackle this costly disease.
As an economist, one of the things that I'm really interested in is looking at production efficiency, trying to identify ways and new tools and new technology that will identify ways to improve production efficiency. And given the large economic cost of BRD, it's really a critical need to the industry to find new tools and techniques to reduce the losses associated with it. So the BRD cap is taking an innovative approach by really focusing on the opportunities to use genetic selection to improve the performance of cattle, reduce the susceptibility of cattle to get BRD, and with that improved production efficiency, it'll reduce the cost, reduce the disease incidence.
So what really excites me about using genomic tools to help select for animal that would be less susceptible to BRD is that there are a lot of cattle that we deal with that everything seems to have been done right. They're well vaccinated, they come from operations that are well managed, they are not stressed when they come, the truck ride's not too terribly long, we get them on good feed, and they still have very significant respiratory disease outbreaks. So if we could have one more tool to identify ways to help those cattle be less susceptible, that would be fantastic. And genetics certainly play a big role in that. They play a big role in growth, they play a big role in carcass quality, they certainly could play a big role in disease resistance.
By eliminating BRD to a great extent, the industry would gain the efficiencies and probably most importantly reduce antibiotic uses. And as those antibiotic use decreases, that has improved market acceptability and improved animal welfare, and so those gains would be dramatic.
A selection tool that would help reduce the incidence of an economic pitfall like BRD could serve as a way for producers to contain costs and avoid lost production efficiency. Achieving that would be a benefit no matter what's happening with cattle market prices.
The cost of BRD is, as I see it, is independent of the market cycles. The value at risk in an up market is certainly higher. But in a downward trending market, you still have those production efficiency losses. Your margins are more challenged, harder to maintain profitability. So any loss, any disease loss, any loss in production efficiency, that's going to be equally important in downward markets as you try to maintain profitability.
The beef industry has done a really nice job over the last 20 or 30 years of increasing their production output with less inputs. And as we find animals that don't ever get challenged with respiratory disease, we can continue to become more and more efficient. And as we are challenged with providing protein to the world and to feed people's families, that's really important as we try and reduce all the other resources that are involved in producing a beef animal.
Selecting for animals that are less prone to BRD is only one of the genetic tools available to produce healthy animals. Crossbreeding has also been shown to reduce disease incidence.
So one of the things that we can't forget about is the value of crossbreeding and what heterosis brings to the table in terms of hybrid vigor, productivity, and health. So as we talk about genomic selection, I think that's one of the things that we need to keep in mind is that crossbreeding is relatively easy to do, and as we select for sire lines or other things that help us with disease resistance, that crossbreeding is probably the first step.
As the 5-year BRD CAP project reaches its completion, scientists from several land-grant universities and the USDA Agricultural Research Service hope that the selection tools and additional outcomes of the project will ultimately help producers select for animals that are less susceptible to respiratory disease. A number of industry collaborators were also essential in providing the field data to help address this critical disease challenge. Managing selected animals in a way that minimizes their risk will enable a sustained decrease in bovine respiratory disease and antibiotic treatments. Ultimately, this will improve animal health and welfare and the overall economics of the beef cattle industry.
And that's why this study is so exciting, because those rate of genetic gains are cumulative and they occur annually and they're cumulative over time. And so they'll whittle down that billion-dollar loss.
From Idaho, I'm Brad Buller reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
The BRD Coordinated Agriculture Project is continuing, and the group meets regularly to review and report on its progress. If you'd like to find out more, just visit the website brdcomplex.org.